This is the passage where Paul talks about being filled with singing, psalms, hymns and spiritual songs. And I guess some of you are thinking, how is he going to get out of this one? That's what the church should be doing, extravagant worship. Well, once again, let's have a close look at what the text actually says. We are to understand what the will of the Lord is. There's a great aim for the church, to find out the will of the Lord. What does God want for your community? Find it out and do it. And we're not to get drunk with wine, which is debauchery, but to be filled with the Spirit. How important that is. Now, most translations have speaking to one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, etc., which conjures up the idea of community singing. But the correct translation is speaking to yourselves, heautois in Greek, with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and praising the Lord in song, in your heart. So this passage is not about the church's activity of singing together when it gathers together. It's about the attitude of Christian people in their own hearts. And we know that. People might say, well, surely it means to one another there. But no, because he uses that down here. He goes on, always giving thanks for everything to God and Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, subordinating one another in the fear of Christ, allelois. That is the word that Paul uses in the same sentence for one another. So if he meant one another there, he'd have used it there. So this passage is about the attitude of our hearts. We're sort of humming over and singing, in your heart as you go about your daily life. That's what it's about. It's not actually about the church's activity at all. So why is it then that we all seem to be so desperate to have a church which is full of singing, that we gather together and we sing a lot of songs? I remember being at a Christian meeting some years ago, which was called for a certain subject, and one of the people there said, we couldn't possibly start unless we'd had 20 minutes of worship first, meaning a lot of singing. Where do we get all this idea from? Well, I don't know. But I am conscious that we do tend to focus on the trivial things. Take, for example, the practice of Holy Communion, so-called. There's a lot of concern about who is entitled to break the bread and consecrate the wine and all this kind of thing. Whereas in Zephaniah chapter 1 verse 7, it says that when God calls a sacrifice, he makes the people who are invited holy. In other words, he's concerned about the state of the people who come, not about the bread and the wine or anything of that kind. We tend to focus on trivial things and leave out the main things if we're not careful. It's a real danger for us.